Dutch colonial interiors will be very comfortable space. In fact, it's really the opposite of what we saw from the Spanish colonial, and that's because of the environment in which it's being built, primarily in New York and the surrounding environment. So what you have to worry about is this very cold period of weather, what we would call winter. So consequently, the interior has to be a comfortable place, but also has to be efficient. We need to have something where people can relax and stay warm through the winter. Now, when we look at these rooms, they tend to be small, although they tend to have an equal size. So for example, the kitchen is the same size as the living room, is the same size as a bedroom. This is more about efficiency than anything else. They tend to be fairly dark, and that's because, of course, any window, first of all, it needs to have glass for it, and that's going to be expensive. But secondly, it becomes a weak point, especially in this early design. So you're not seeing the bright open spaces. And imagine what this space would be like if I lit it only by candles. It may be very comfortable, but it's going to be very small as well. The furnishings are usually fairly straightforward, and we'll get into those. But one of the key features that you're going to see in Dutch homes, one of the things that's going to stand out in almost every example, is they're going to have chimneys at the ends of the building. And this is very different. Here we see a shared chimney in the middle and then another one at the end here. But this is very different from the English. You'll also notice that the chimney does not stand out from the facade. In fact, this is just a flat wall, whereas the English, this would actually stand out, and we would see some kind of form in the brickwork that would give us the impression of the fireplace and chimney behind it, something like that. So what are they doing? What's so different? Well, it's all about how their fireplaces work. Now, this is a Dutch fireplace, and you're looking at going, there's no fireplace. There's a bunch of stone on the floor, and there's this big hood. What's going on? Well, what we have is your standard Dutch fireplace. What they've done, instead of pushing the fireplace into the wall where it loses a lot of its heat to the surrounding brick, what we have is something that is projected into the space. So we have a flat hearth where you would have your, burning wood, etc., and you do your cooking, and then the stove is sitting above it. This valance, this sort of curtain running around it, helps capture that smoke and draw it up through the chimney. To give you a better idea, here I'm looking at or comparing the traditional English style versus the Dutch style of fireplace. Now, the traditional English style, you have your fireplace set in. Here's your mantle, and so this would be the wall. The mantle would come down, the fireplace is behind it, and then the heat goes up the flue and up the chimney. Now, this is fantastic, except you're always trying to project that heat out, which is very tricky. And of course, a lot of it's being absorbed into this brickwork surrounding, which is not radiating back into the home. Instead, what the Dutch do is they build that hood up above, and this is a little different example, but they build that hood up above, and then you have that open hearth. The back wall of the house is here instead of in front of the fire. It's behind the fire. Thus, the heat of the fire is going to be sent out much more into the space. This is not going to be 100% efficient, but it is far more efficient than our English examples. So what you're going to see is that very basic Dutch fireplace with this massive hood over it. And here we have a couple of examples. This is the one that I showed you earlier. But in poorer homes, what you would have is a very simple, small hood, and then some form of tile work frequently surrounding. The reason for the tile work is it's easy to clean. This would all be covered in soot. In poorer homes, even poorer than this one, you would have what we have here, which is whitewash. And that whitewash would be reapplied year after year after year to allow for it to stay white and clean. But if you see it like this, it means it's really not being used. And you wonder, well, why doesn't the smoke escape into the room? Well, sure, some of it might, but an efficiently constructed chimney and watching the wind and that sort of thing will result in all of this smoke being drawn up the hood so that you don't run into those issues.